Good morning. Today we're going to learn how to read the table. When we go to read the table, we are not going to be using the note spiral. You will need to print out a table. It's in your Google Drive. It's in the Google Classroom. We're at standard normal, positive z-scores, and standard normal, negative z-scores. Excuse me, I had the wrong one. Standard normal positive and standard normal negative. You need to make sure you have one of each. And we will begin. First thing to know is the table is written with z-scores on the outside. So this would be 0, and then right here would be 0.02 or 1.1, and this would be 1.12. All right, and basically if I wanted 1.9, 1.95, I could go 1.9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this would be 1.95. All right. So the way you read the column is the z-scores. The first two digits are on the left-hand column. The third digit makes the column headers. Okay. All right. And the table only carries z-scores to 2 decimal places. Reality, they can be an infinite number of decimal places, but the table only carries it to 2 decimal places. So the z-scores are made out of the rows and columns, and then internal to the table are percentile ranks or area or probability. They all mean essentially the same thing, and that's where we're going to begin. So first off, if I had a z-score of 0, that's going to look a little bit like this. We have -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And I only went positive plus or minus 3 standard deviations because 99.7% of the data is within plus or minus 3. And I know it's not perfectly drawn, but I do know 0 is always going to be in the middle. All right, so if they have a z equals 0, what I'm going to write is what's the probability of having a z less than or equal to 0, because it's a percentile rank. And that means, 50% of the data, or 0.50 of the data, is below 0. So that would be my percentile rank, would be 50% for a z equals 0, and we write it this way, probability of getting z equals 0. All right, so our very first one that we're going to do, and we should always draw the picture. It'll help you out. So -3, -2, -1, and I want the probability of getting a z less than -1. Well, first off, because it's below 0, I know it's going to be less than 50%. That said, all probabilities are positive. So I'm going to end up with some sort of positive probability, but it's going to be less than 0.50 because it's below 0. All right, so I go to the table, and since it's a negative z-score, I need the negative table. And looking at the negative table, it's really nice for the ones that are 2 digits because it's just written on the outside column. So we have -1.210, and there it is, 0.1587. So that would be my solution for that first one, would be 0.1587. Okay. On the other hand, what happens if I had the probability equal to 1? All right, so I want to know z equal to 1, so the probability that z is less than or equal to 1. Well, we're above 0, so we're going to be above 50%. And I'm going to look this up on the table, and since it's positive, I'm going to need the positive z-score table. And once again, I'm only working with a 2-digit number, so 1.0, so it's right here in the very first column. That's very easy, 0.8413. All right. So that means 84% of the data is less than 1 z-score away from the mean. All right. Okay. Well, those are the ones that are fairly easy to do, or the easiest to do, the ones that have 1 decimal place to the right. All right. What happens though if I have a probability of z less than or equal to 1.20? This should be 1.20. Probability of z less than or equal to 1.20. Well, I'm going to be slightly above 1. So that means because I'm above 0, it's going to be positive. And so I'm going to go to my table. And I'm trying to do this without glasses, so this may not work too well. And I go, okay, well, there's 1.2 and 1.20 is right there. So again, that's just the first column one, and it's 0.8849. Well, that didn't help me out a whole lot. But hopefully the next one will, because this has a probability of z being less than 1.23. So I want the probability of z being less than 1.23. So just using a ruler to line me up, I'm going to go, there's 1.2, 1.20, 1.21, 1.22, 1.23. So my answer is 0.8907. So 89% or 89.07% of the data is below a z-score of 1.23, and that's what I wrote. All right, the next one. Probability that z is less than negative 1.2. So now we're back on the negative scale. So we're expecting a probability that's going to be less than 0.5. And since it's 1.20, negative 1.20, negative 1.2, there's my 0, negative 1.20 is 0.1151, which is what we showed. Now, if I want the negative 1.23, that's even a little farther to the left. That's even a little farther to the left, so I'm expecting a value that's less than this, because it's, all right, the main thing you know that it's going to be less than 0.5 and that you need to use the negative table. So using the negative table, negative 1.2, and I have 0, column 1, 2, 3. This is 1.20, 1.21, 1.22, 1.23, and there it is, 0.1093, and that's what we have. All right, so that's reading the z-score table. Please remember that as you read the table, the first two digits are on the outside, but the hundredth place comes from the columns. All right. And it helps to have a straight edge to read across these things, especially if you're like me and need glasses. All right. So what happens if I didn't give you a z-score and I gave you a probability, or I gave you a percentile rank? So probability is 0.85. In other words, I want to find the z-score for something at the 85th percentile. Well, first off, this is positive, and because it's positive, I need to be working in the positive part of the table. And by the way, we know it's positive because it's over 50%. So I'm going to take a positive table, and now I have to start hunting. All right, we're at 50%, and I'm going to get down, and it's like, okay, we're close because we're at 80. You can't see that. Let me try that. We're at 50%, and it's like, oh, we're close because we're at 84%. All right, and I'm going to start looking across here somewhere, and I go, okay, looking for 0.8500. I don't see it. The closest I have is 0.8508, and we're not going to worry about interpolating at this point or anything like that. And so I'm going to have 1.004. All right, so 1.04 is my response. All right, 1.04 is the response. And that is really should be an approximation. Z is approximately 1.04. And what that means is 85% of the data is less than a z-score of 1.04. Well, what if I wanted to know the 25th percentile, like they show, or Q1, because that's Q1 on a box plot. What if I wanted to know the 25th percentile? Okay, well, 25 is going to be less than 0.25 is less than 50%. So I know I'm working with a negative z-score. All right, so I start hunting. And getting farther down here, oh, 21, 27. So somewhere in this range, we're getting pretty close. All right. And I see 0.2578, 0.2546, 0.2514. Then it drops to 0.2483. So right now I'm going, you know what? It's between these two, is closer to 0.67. Is closer to 0.67. So that's what I'm going to record as my answer, negative 0.67. Now, if you had messed up and you wrote negative 0.68, that's going to be close enough. All right, I'd rather you not interpolate at this point. I'd rather you just go with one of the numbers off the chart. So based on this, and here's how I got that. 0.60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. All right, and it's negative, so negative 0.67. And so that's how I got that response. What if I wanted the 75th percentile, which is Q3? All right, what is the z-score? Well, 75th is over 0.5, so we know we're going to be working with a positive chart. Right, we know we're working with a positive chart. So working with a positive chart, I come down 50, and all of a sudden we're getting really close about here. So I start looking at this. And, oh, 0.7486, 0.7517. This is 14 10,000ths away, so it's closer. So 0.60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, as the column says. All right. And that would be my answer for that one, which is 0.67. Now, one thing you want to might notice is Q1 and Q3 have essentially are just are mirror images. One is the negative version of the other. And the reason for that is because the table is symmetric. So if I were using anything that was equidistance from the bottom, then equidistance from the top, I should get this opposite z-score. For instance, if I wanted to do 0.05, so we're looking at 0.05, all right, looking in the table for 0.05, we're scrolling down, and I end up getting somewhere 1.6, somewhere between 1.64 and 1.65, between 1.64 and 1.65. Well, that should be complementary to the to a 95%. 5% is 5 away from the bottom, 95% is 5 away from the top. So let's look for 95%. All right. So looking for 95%, and the closest one between it is 1.645, 1.64, or 1.65. So it was in between there. All right. So basically, because of the property of symmetry, you have to be really careful that you're paying attention to the positive and negative signs. Thank you.